Hey everybody, welcome to Frannie's Square for episode 2 of the Make It Your Own design series. I'm so glad you've joined me for episode 2. If you haven't yet had a chance to watch episode 1 where I take you through the 10 basic steps of designing a project, I'm going to put a link right here and you can go check that out first and then come back and join us. In episode 2, we're going to be focused on choosing our materials, choosing our stitch, motif, and edgings, and finally on doing our rough sketch of our project. So if you haven't had a chance yet to download the project planning sheet, click on the link below in the description and print that out, and you can follow along with me as I fill mine out. One quick note, I had a few comments where people said, I'm just not ready to design my own project yet. And that's totally understandable. Do things at your own pace. In the meantime, you can still come along for the ride, watch the series, and learn a few things that may help you when you're following patterns. It may help you to find some mistakes in patterns, or it may help you to change up just one little piece of a pattern to make it your own. Whatever your needs are, use this course to fit those needs. So if you haven't had a chance yet to print out your project planning sheet, you can do it now. There's a link in the description below. And then find yourself a comfortable place to sit, and we're going to get started. Okay, so let's fill out our project planning sheet together. I'm going to take you through my thought process as I design my project, and you'll get to see the kinds of things I think about and how they relate to my choices for materials, stitches, and edgings. Okay, so the first thing we do is we write the name of our project, and I'm choosing to make a summer placemat. Now we're already in June, so I want to get this done quickly, and that's going to be a consideration. You'll see as we go forward. So, considerations. What is the purpose of this project? The purpose of this project is to protect whatever surface the placemat is on while people are eating. I also want it to look decorative. I want it to match my decor and to look summery. Which elements will it be exposed to? Well, it'll definitely be exposed to water, to food, to all sorts of drinks. And I think it will probably be exposed to heat as well. Often I use my placemats as trivets, so I want to make sure that it can withstand heat. How quickly would I like to finish this? Well, since it's a summer placemat and we're already in June, I'd like to finish it pretty quickly, probably within 2 weeks. And I want to make several of them, not just one. But I'm going to just design the one and then repeat the process to make all of them. Does the care of the fabric matter? Yes, there's going to be spills, I know that. Food, drink, whatever. So I want an easy care placemat. I want to be able to throw it in the washer and dryer. Are there any additional considerations? I can't think of any right now, but if I do, I'll add it to that spot. Okay, so now for my material choice. Do I need a specific type of fiber based on the above considerations? Yes. First, I want it to be able to be exposed to heat. So that limits me to a cotton, a wool, a bamboo, something natural. I tend to prefer cotton for things that are going to have to withstand heat. Also, I want it to be easy care because it's going to be exposed to food spills, water spills, and I want to be able to just throw it in the washer. So again, cotton fits that bill. So far, cotton's looking good. Which yarns in my stash would I like to consider using? Well, I just recently purchased a bunch of yarns in my summer yarn haul, and if you haven't seen that, go take a look. That was a lot of fun, and I'll put a link right here. But this yarn in particular, I thought would be really pretty. First of all, I purchased it in summery colors, so that would be really great. It's 100% cotton, and it's a thicker weight yarn, which we're going to get to in the next question, I believe, which I know will crochet up more quickly because it is a thicker yarn. So far, this yarn's looking good. That's called the Natural Cotton Chunky, so I'll write that one down. Which weight yarn would work well for this project? Well, this is a 5 weight yarn, and I do think that that will work well for this project, so I'm going to write down 5 weight. Do I need more than one yarn? Color changes, edging, etc. I would like to use all three of these colors. Maybe one for the body of the placemat and then a mixture of the three for the edging. I think that might look nice. And I could switch it up and have a different color for the body for each of the placemats. Okay, now for my stitch choice. Am I looking for a tighter or a looser weave? Well, I want the placemat to protect my surface, so I'm going to look for a tighter weave. Anything that's too loose or has holes in it, I don't feel will protect my surface well. So I want a tighter weave. Does the stitch need to be flat or textured? Well, again, for a placemat, I'm looking for a flatter stitch because I don't want my glasses to topple over. I want it to be a stable surface. Do I want a smaller or a larger stitch? For this, I would say I want a medium-sized stitch. A smaller stitch will take me longer to crochet. A larger stitch might have too much space in it, and I'm looking for a tight weave. So for me, my favorite medium stitch is the half double crochet. I'm going to look for a stitch that uses the half double crochet. Now, mosaics. I am not going to be using mosaics in this placemat. You could make mosaics the center of your placemat and then do a border around it, kind of like the eye candy granny blanket that we did. That would be an option. Or you could do the body in a stitch and use motifs around the border for whatever your project is, if it's a blanket or a table runner, especially in these rectangular projects. But let's go through the mosaic questions anyway and talk about what you might need to consider if you're going to be using them. First, how many mosaics will you need? Well, if you saw the eye candy granny blanket where we used the mosaics in the middle, the number of mosaics determined the shape of my project. If I chose 9 mosaics, say a 3 by 3, my project was going to be a square. If I chose 20 mosaics, 4 by 5, then I would have a rectangular project. So you want to figure out what you want your project to look like and how many mosaics you think you'll need to achieve that look. Second, do I want flat, textured, or 3D motifs? Well, again, what are you making? If you are making a placemat, for example, you're going to want it to be flat. But if you're making a blanket, a texture could be beautiful, or even a 3D motif with flowers or something like that could be really beautiful. What shape mosaic? Well, mosaics come in many different shapes. There are squares, circles, hexagons, stars, so you can figure out what shape motifs you'd like to use and where they would fit into your project. Will I need multiple shapes? If you saw the review I did of Jane Crowfoot's Persian Tiles Afghan, and I'll put the link for that here, she used a combination of octagons, squares, and triangles to put together her blanket, and she got a really beautiful effect that way. Now that's a little bit more complicated, and I wouldn't recommend doing that for your first project. You'll see the possibilities are truly endless. Okay, and then the last question is if you're going to use multiple mosaic shapes, how many of each do you need? And for that question, you may actually need to do your sketch first and come back to that. The steps we're doing today can really be changed up as far as the order you're doing them in. I like to do the sheet first, but for some things, I really need to do the sketch to figure out how to answer the question on the sheet. And this one question, if I'm using a multiple of shapes, how many of each do I need? I would really need to sketch that out before I'd be able to answer that. So while I had an order to the steps when I was telling you the 10 basic steps of designing a crochet project, sometimes you do need to switch them around a bit to make it work for you. Okay, so those are the questions I ask myself if I'm putting mosaics into my pattern. Now, the last thing I'm going to consider is my edging choice, and I am going to do an edging. So am I looking for a tighter or looser weave? Well, I really could do my edging in a looser weave and just have it be a decoration, and hopefully everybody would keep their plate and cup on the body of the placemat. But for this, I think I'm going to do a tighter weave along the edge as well, and that way people don't have to be careful about putting their glass on the edge of the placemat. Am I looking for a specific stitch multiple? Well, that I'm going to explain to you as we go over the edgings. And this is another question that you probably would not answer until your rough sketch is finished. Is the edging decorative only, or does it have a purpose? Well, if you're doing a blanket, it may be decorative, or a table runner. In this case, for my placemat, the edging does have a purpose. I want it to be part of the placemat. I want people to be able to put their plates and their glasses along the edge as well. So I'm going to make sure that I have a tighter, flatter weave for the edging as well. Okay, so now that we've finished filling out our project planning sheet, we can move on to the next step, which is choosing our stitch. For choosing my stitch, if you've watched my videos, you already know I'm going to be using the indispensable Stitch Collection for Crocheters by Melissa Leitman. And I know that I'm looking for a tighter weave stitch because I want my placemat to protect my table. So I'm going to go to the first section of this book. I know the sections by heart, which is the simple solid stitches. And I also know that I'm looking for a half double crochet because I want the project to move fairly quickly. And I don't want to use a double crochet because I feel like that stitch just leaves too much space for my liking. So in this section, immediately, the first thing that catches my eye is a stitch called the alternating front and back loop half double crochet. And it looks like this, which I think is a really pretty stitch. I think I'm going to choose this stitch. I do have a question in my mind, which I won't find the answer to until I swatch, and that is this stitch flat enough? I can't tell by looking at the picture. This just highlights the importance of doing a swatch. I've chosen my stitch, I've chosen my yarn. I got to see, do they work together? And we'll see that in another episode when we're doing swatches. Okay, so far I have my material. I'm using my natural cotton chunky. I have my stitch, this half double crochet front loop, back loop stitch. And now I'm going to take a look at edgings. When choosing an edging, the first thing you want to pay attention to is what's called the suggested stitch count for the base round. Now that's a mouthful, but I'm going to explain to you what that means. What's a base round? Well, a base round is a round of stitches that you're going to put around the body of your project to get ready to put the edging on. And basically a base round is just used so that you're smoothing out any irregularities. I like to do my base round usually in single crochets all the way around the edge of my project and in the same color as the body of the project. And the reason I do that is because I don't want that base round to accentuate any of the irregularities. So if I do it in the same color as the body of my project, I don't have to worry about that. It's going to hide those things. Now, the suggested stitch count for the base round comes into play when you choose your edging, because certain edgings have repeating patterns, and you want to make sure that that repeating pattern fits into the edge between your corners. You don't want to have some sort of design and you get to the edge and you can only fit half of that design in. So that's why there's a recommended stitch count for your edging. For example, if I were to choose an edging that looked like this, I don't want to get to the edge and only have half of one of these little ovals. I want to make sure I fit them between the two corners of the edging. So in this case, this edging says that the recommended stitch count is a multiple of 4 plus 1 plus your corner stitches. So what does that mean? Basically, that means between your corner stitches, not including your corners, you're going to want a multiple of 4 plus 1. Now, it could be any multiple of 4. It could be 12, 16, 20, plus 1. So say I was choosing 20 stitches, 5 multiples of 4. I would add 1 stitch to that. I know that I need 21 stitches between the corners for this edging to fit. Now I have to do that for all sides. If I don't want a square project, I'm going to need a different stitch count along the height, but still a multiple of 4 plus 1. So maybe for the height, I want it to be 3 times 4 or 12 plus 1, 13 stitches here. If I do that, my edging again will fit. So your length and height do not have to be the same stitch count, but they do have to follow the recommended stitch count. Now, there are ways to fudge your project if need be, but since we're choosing a simple rectangular project where probably the sizing doesn't have to be so exact, we can make our stitches just fit the edging that we want. So it's a perfect project to start to learn how to use an edging. Now, if all of that sounded too complicated for you, don't worry. You can still put an edging on. Just choose an edging that says that the recommended stitch count is any multiple. Any multiple just means that it will work with any stitch count. So that's a great way to start making edgings if you don't want to go through the process of doing the math. And don't forget, as we go through the steps, you'll see me doing these things and you'll really get to learn the process. So even if it's not making so much sense right now, stick with me. You're going to learn how to do it. Okay, so for my edging, I want to look for something that is a tight weave and that's flat, because I want my cups to be able to go out to the edge of my placemat without tipping over. So in looking through this book, I'm really liking the look of this edging because I am using 3 colors, which this uses, and I really like the way that looks. And that's not to say that you can't change up the number of colors from what's shown here, but I really think that this is going to be a nice look, and it's a tight weave, and it looks pretty flat. Again, I'll see when I do the swatching if that's true. When I do the swatching, I'm going to do a body piece and I'm going to do the edging to make sure that everything is working together. This edging has a suggested stitch count of a multiple of 2 plus 1 plus the corner stitches. So as we go forward, I will be doing these calculations and showing you how to fit my edging on. And I'm going to do it right from the swatch. I'm going to make a swatch with the correct number of stitches to fit in edging so that I can put the edging on and see how it all looks together. And in fact, I may even make these swatches so that I'll be able to use them as matching coasters. I can't tell you how many swatches I've used around my house as coasters. Okay, so the first thing I did was I took out a placemat that I already have just to see what size it is, and I like this size placemat. I've used it many times and it really worked out well for me. Okay, so if I measure this placemat, it's 13 inches in height, and let's see what it is in width. So this is up to 15. And 3. So it looks like it's 18 inches across. So it's 18 by 13. Now I like to do my sketches, especially for something that's rectangular, on graph paper. It's absolutely not necessary. You can do it on a regular sheet of paper. I just find it easier to draw my lines. I like to draw it to represent the sizing, even if it's not the same size as my placemat's gonna be, which it can't be because this pad is too small. So I'm just going to write up here that I want my placemat to be 18 inches by 13 inches. Okay, so to start my drawing, I'm just going to pick a spot over here. This is going to be the top corner of my placemat. And since I have these squares, I could just do 1 square per inch and have 18 going across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's a pretty small drawing. So I'm just going to double that, and I'm going to have each square represent a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to go 36 across just because I want my drawing a little bit bigger. You don't have to be this exact in your drawing. Like I said, you could just draw on a piece of paper, write your dimensions, just so you know. I like to do this. It feels a little bit neater to me. Okay, so that's the end of the 36th square. And since I had it represent a 1/2 inch going across, I'm going to do the same thing going down because I want the ratio of the placemat to look right to me. So if it's a 1/2 inch a square, then I'm going to need 26 squares going down. And that goes down to here. Okay, so now I can just start drawing my placemat right along the line here. And you can see I'm not so perfect. And then I'm going to just follow this line down to where it meets this one. Okay, so there's my basic placemat. Now I want an edging, as I said before. How big do I want my edging? I don't want it to be, you know, take up the whole placemat, obviously. If it's like this, it might be a little too thin. My feeling is about 4 of these squares down and 4 across. So that would put my first corner here. And if I go 4 across, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 down, 1, 2, 3, 4, right here. I'll do that the same on each corner. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. And then I'm just going to join those lines. Okay, so this is going to be the body of my placemat, and this is going to be the edging. Now, the beauty of drawing this on graph paper is that I know that each square represents a 1/2 inch. So I know that if I count these squares here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So it's 28 1/2 inches or 14 inches across. So my body is going to be 14 inches by, and then I'll count down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 18 1/2 inches or 9 inches. So it'll be 9 inches. So the center of my placemat is going to be 14 by 9. And that's where I'm going to start. And then I know that my border is going to be 2 inches wide all the way around because it's 4 squares. So that's the beauty of doing something especially rectangular on graph paper. And you might even want to write your key up here. 1 square equals 1/2 inch, so that you know. So that is my basic rough drawing. Very easy to do. And now I have a diagram to follow and some measurements to follow as well. All right, so today we went through our project planning sheet. We chose our material, we chose our stitch, our motifs, our edging, and we've done a rough sketch of our project. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below. And if you didn't have a chance to work through this with me, you can sit down and work through it now. And in the next episode, we're going to talk all about swatching and actually start to make a swatch. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. Remember to make it your own, and I'll see you soon.